All right, folks. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. We might have a couple other folks join us. So my name is Brandy Myers, and I am the training coordinator for the North Carolina Department of Ag and Consumer Services, their division of soil and water conservation. And so here today, you are in the new employee onboarding program. This is a program that's designed to help district employees sort of navigate those early stages of becoming a new district staff. And so there's a lot of great resources that we have available to you. So we're just going to sort of walk you through some of those resources. And so from 9 to about 10:30 will be the same content that we have every month, where I will walk you through those resources that we talked about. And then from 10:30 to 12, those are what we call training topics, and those segments will change from month to month. So this month, we are going to be having a great panel with our engineering services. They'll be on a little bit later, and they're also going to walk you through the teamwork platform. Our technicians will be using that pretty frequently if you ever put in any technical service requests through the state division. So we'll kind of talk more about that later. But I'm really excited. We do have a pretty large flux of new employees that have come on around the summertime. So that's why this one looks a little full. So I'm super excited to meet some new people today. So before we dive in, I just wanted to sort of reconfirm that this new employee onboarding program is sort of a multi-phased approach, so that we don't overwhelm you with content just like in one day if we can avoid it. So you are sort of right here in phase two, which is the virtual orientation. So moving forward from today on, we will be contacting you about sort of an in-office training opportunity that'll either be most likely with your regional coordinator or your cost share specialist. And then there will be a mentorship phase. So we will talk a little bit more about that later, but just wanted to confirm that you're in step two, you're making progress. So really excited that you're here. So here's just a little bit more information about me. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but my background comes mostly from geological consulting. I did not spend a lot of time around the agriculture community. I sort of stumbled into this, but I have found that I really love it. I know some other folks had mentioned that they also did not really have a background with farming and things like that. So I understand where that might feel like you're kind of in a weird spot, but I will say that we all bring different unique gifts to the table. And so I do think that all of us, whether we have an agriculture background or not, we bring some perspective that's really valuable to this group, which makes our partnership so special. So one of my favorite things that I did after school was I realized I didn't know nearly as much about the job industry for specifically geologists as I had hoped. Um, you kind of think you know what you're getting yourself into, and then you realize that you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So it sort of became my passion to sort of communicate some of the things that worked well for me, as well as some of my struggles to some of those students that were transitioning into their first career fields. And I've just always really loved the aspect of sort of helping people start a new transition in their life, which is why we started this program. So really excited about that. I also have a couple of Siamese cats that you might see running around. I think one is trying to get into the room as we speak, but we'll see if I let them in. They sometimes like to crawl over here. All right, so diving right into what is a soil and water conservation district. Okay, so many of you guys have been already working for soil and water conservation districts, so you might have a good understanding of what they are at this point. But just to kind of go over, a soil and water district is a local government entity focused on natural resource conservation. They work with landowners, farm owners, and communities to promote voluntary conservation. These can operate at the county level and are guided by what we call a board of supervisors. Now, I will say the term board of supervisors, or just supervisors that talks about like your district board entity. You guys may be familiar with that. That is a term relatively unique to North Carolina. Other folks call them district boards. Other folks call them, what are they? I can't even remember soil and water, just district officials and things like that. But here in North Carolina, we have adopted the term supervisor. So sometimes that might mean most of the time that means your district board. And in some cases, obviously, it might mean your actual district supervisor who manages you. But I know that can be a little confusing. So it's more given about the context. So when in doubt, you can always ask. So moving forward, what do soil and water conservation districts do? They do a multitude of things, and every single district in the state of North Carolina and across the nation really operates different from their neighboring districts. Everyone is just a little bit unique in their own way. But as sort of core things that our districts do, they do offer technical assistance, a lot of times to landowners or their community, helping with things like water quality, soil erosion, or various conservation practices. In the state of North Carolina, we do have legislative funds called our cost share programs or our STRAP program that help put implementation efforts on the ground. So we provide basically that money and that resources to your district, and then you sort of put them into practice. So we'll talk a little bit more about those cost share programs later on this morning. And then also soil and water conservation districts do a lot of education and outreach. So this could be through K through 12 programs, education wise, or administrative. Folks also join in. This could also be with like landowner workshops. Anytime you go out to see a farmer and you're sort of talking to them about if they want to engage in a conservation practice, in some ways that can be considered outreach. So this is a pretty potent part of all of our soil and water districts, is to just kind of get out into the community and make your services known. So these are sort of the three main big targets that our soil and water districts here in North Carolina do. A district board. So these are the governing body of the district, typically 5 supervisors. Of that district board, 3 of those individuals are elected by the public, and 2 of them are appointed by the North Carolina Soil and Water Conservation Commission. These boards set local priorities, they oversee district operations, and they ensure compliance with state and federal programs. So when we talk about your district board, we're talking about those individuals, those 5 individuals that have those typically monthly board meetings, and they sort of make sure that our legislative funds are used appropriately. And then in a lot of cases, they also help with navigating staff and oversight into outreach into the community. So there is a lot of other things that our supervisors can do that is not explicitly on this list, but this is kind of the core of what our district boards do. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the makeup of those district boards here in a little bit. So we're going to table that just for now, just a brief sort of definition. Now, who works in a soil and water district? For this training, you guys got to hear a bunch of people's different roles and backgrounds. So you might be aware and see a lot of crossover between the different job descriptions that folks mentioned this morning. So the different job duties could be, say, a district director or an administrator. These individuals manage daily operations, grants, and sometimes outreach initiatives. We have our soil conservation and technicians. These provide technical assistance, and they sometimes work on designing conservation practices, working with engineers, things of that nature. Many of our soil and water districts hire education coordinators. Not all of them, but some of them do have this individual that leads the outreach programs and sort of public engagement. A lot of our education coordinators focus on K through 12 programming, but a lot of them also do focus on adult outreach, say to farmers or different community individuals as well. We also have administrative support. These could be administrative coordinators, administrative specialists. A lot of times, these individuals handle things like budgeting, record keeping, and program coordination, just kind of making sure that our soil and water districts have all their paperwork provided correctly. They sort of make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, sort of keeping our soil and water districts in line and organized. So we appreciate all of their work. And then in a lot of our soil and water districts, we do have partnership staff that might share office space or might be sort of within your building. This could be the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service staff. This may be extension agents, the Farm Service Agency, or other local government, state, or federal groups that could have office space in your district. Now, what makes North Carolina districts unique from other states? So, our state structure here in North Carolina, we have 96 soil and water districts. So, all of our districts, except for one of them, operates around the county boundaries. So, our districts and our counties a lot of times have very similar names. The only exception to this rule is up in the far northeast corner of the state. There's a district called the Albemarle district, and they sort of serve, I think it's 5 different districts. I'm sorry, 5 different counties are combined into that one district. So they have a slightly different criteria. They're allowed to have more supervisors that govern that Albemarle district, but they are sort of the only one in that situation. We also have our local government operation with state level oversight and funding support. So a lot of times that means those legislative dollars come all the way down and are provided to our soil and water districts to implement various practices that fall underneath the program structure. So in other states, they also operate very differently. So just like each one of our soil and water districts is a little bit unique, so is every state and how they operate. So in other states, some districts might be bordered by, say, the county. Some might just sort of have their own random boundaries. Some have multiple counties and municipalities in a district. Some have less. So it really just varies from state to state where those soil and water district boundaries actually are. And then also each state has different funding structures. So some rely more on federal funds than state funds. Some also have local taxes that they implement in order to receive funding for their programs. And then, of course, some districts operate more independent than others. In North Carolina, our soil and water districts operate independently for the most part. So basically, you sort of have your own choice. You guys hire your own employees through the county, things of that nature. In other states, for example, a state employee might work at the district. So they're kind of not seen as a county employee or a district employee. They might be more considered a state employee, even though they are operating on behalf of that district. So, sort of the structure of how independent a district is can vary from state to state. So that is basically all we're going to go through about sort of just the general makeup of soil and water conservation districts. Does anyone have any questions at this point? You can raise your hand. You can come off mute. You can type any questions that you have in the chat. All right. If you think of something, please feel free to use any of those mechanisms to sort of flag me down. I'm happy to move on. We are going to go through this next prompt, and then we'll do a quick little 5-minute break. So I'm just going to truck right around through this next little program, and then we'll take a brief break. Okay, so this portion of our program, we get to talk about the partnership. This is by far my favorite topic in our whole soil and water industry. I love the different resources in the community that we've built through our partnerships here in North Carolina. I think each one serves a valuable asset and role to our soil and water conservation district. So I really think a lot of these organizations and the people that make up these organizations and how they help support our district. So I hope that this program will provide you some insights and some new ideas about how you navigate through your position. So let's move on. Actually, I'm going to go back. Okay, so I do want to state that as you can see, so these are all the soil and water conservation partners here in North Carolina. As you can see, though, there's these connections, and we're going to talk about what all these little connections mean. But sort of at the core of everything is our soil and water districts. You guys are sort of the beating heart, if you will, in your communities. You're the ones that let us know what needs you have, and you're the one who puts the work into action. You're the one who reaches out to your community. You're the one who talks to your local farmers and your teachers. You are the experts in your community. So these resources exist to help you at the district level. So at its core, it all comes back to locally led conservation. And this was a sort of vision of a gentleman that you will hear a lot about here in North Carolina. His name is Q Hammond Bennett, and he is considered the father of soil and water conservation. He's actually a North Carolinian. He was born in Brown Creek or Anson County area. And so he has sort of just been this pivotal, historic figure that we have based this beautiful idea around everything being locally led, because no one knows the community better than the people who work and live in the community. So you will hear a lot about his vision as you go through this journey. And I certainly recommend that you look in more about that gentleman. He is quite fascinating, actually. So, one of the quotes that I really liked that he had in some of his documents that he provided was, "Conservation is not a government job. It is a job for the people themselves. It is a job that must be done by people, for the people, and with people." So it's just kind of tying back in to that locally led aspect. Now, in North Carolina, since our boundary for our districts mimic the county boundaries, what's really happened in North Carolina that works really well, I think, for most of our soil and water districts is this tie between our district and the counties. So in most cases, actually, the district employees are actually employed through the county. So you get county benefits. So you are a local government worker in a sense of that you're employed through the county. One of the great aspects, other than just say getting benefits by being a county employee, is that having really strong ties to your county really helps open the door for things like speaking with your county commissioners, working with the local schools, working with your water and sewer authorities, city municipalities, recycling programs, parks and recreation, or also your extension, your local extension and farm service agency. So this sort of opens the door to a lot of different potential where you can work on various projects or gain various insights just by being involved at the county level. Next, I want to go through our Soil and Water Conservation Commission. This is the way I think about it. Okay, so we have our district boards in every single district. Normally, that is 5 supervisors that are on each of the boards in each district, right? So your board most likely has 5 supervisors, unless you're in the Albemarle district. For our Soil and Water Conservation Commission, their board represents the entire state. So they have 7 commission members, all of which, except for one, are soil and water supervisors. We're going to talk a little bit more about the structure of the Soil and Water Commission if I have time. But I do want to let you know that there are sort of 7 members that govern our state legislative funds. So the state gives us funds that then we give out to the districts. Now, the folks who make the decisions on how that money is allocated and how the money is used and any rules or parameters that are needed for that is the Soil and Water Commission. Currently, the Soil and Water Commission chairwoman is Barbara Blywise, and that is her right here. And they also do a lot of different handling different rules and policies. There are actually rules for your supervisors that serve on your district board that they govern. So, like, for example, it's required that for every term for a supervisor is, I believe it's 4 years, is if it's a 4-year term. So within that 4 years, each of the supervisors has to have 6 credits, like 6 professional development hours, 6 supervisor training credits is what they're called for each term. So, say for example, if a supervisor does not meet that requirement, then it would go before the Soil and Water Commission on how they want to handle that, because that is a rule in legislative law that they do have to get those 6 credit hours. So it is a legal rule process. So if they don't apply to it, then legal action can be taken. Now, no one's going to get like in massive trouble, but I guess in theory, a board member could be removed if they don't abide by their by the rules that they agreed to when they came on as a supervisor. So just note of action that this is our sort of rule and policy making body, and they sort of have the authority to make decisions on behalf of the soil and water supervisors across the state and how we implement legislative funds. Next, I want to talk a little bit about my employer, which is the Division of Soil and Water Conservation. We are your state level partner. We actually really work sort of under the guidance of the Soil and Water Commission to some degree. So we also, help deliver the state appropriations and the funds that you guys use, making sure that it's done the way that the commission requires it to be done. We also support staff at the district level for various trainings or any sort of designs that you might need. Our engineering team will talk about that later today. We also have some really great services available to you that we're going to talk about. One group in particular I do want to spend some time speaking about is our regional coordinators. They are a group, they are sort of sprinkled around this state, and they have certain areas that they help you. But when in doubt, your regional coordinator is the person who either has the answers for you or knows where to find answers. So if you have not gotten a chance, we do want you to try to get to know those regional coordinators, because they are a sort of first great line of contact if you have any questions. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the Division of Soil and Water Conservation is your state level. So where does this all fit into this really complicated diagram? So actually, since the commission is tied to the Soil and Water District through state funding, there actually does have to be general statutes and legislation in place to support that tie of receiving the funding and implementing funding and things of that nature. So the Soil and Water Commission, as you can see here, is tied to the Soil and Water District, but also it's tied to the division to implement the programs, and then for the Soil and Water Conservation Districts to actually do the work as their community sees fit. And that's all done through General Statute 139. So how we actually get these funds to the Soil and Water District to support you is actually in our North Carolina state legislature, which is a really beautiful thing, because when things are put into law like that, it's really difficult to change them. So this is something that has worked really well for North Carolina, to have this long-standing general statute that aims to support the soil and water districts in North Carolina. about is the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. I cannot possibly get into all the wonderful things that this organization does. They are essentially a staff of two, if you will. One person is Brian Evans, the executive director of the association, and then now the association has an education coordinator named Jessica Davis. And so she's part-time. She also works at Randolph Soil and Water Conservation District. But the main thing I want to say about the association is an organization that sort of aims to primarily support the district supervisors to make sure that they are handling sort of professional development correctly, that they understand their duties and responsibilities. So they have various trainings throughout the week. They also lobby on behalf of soil and water districts for funding and things of that nature. But what I also will say is, even though sort of their core group is the districts or the district supervisors, they also do a lot to support the district staff. Actually, a lot of our programs and our training programs filter through the Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. So they are kind of a big piece of the glue that holds our partnership together. So I definitely recommend that if you can ever go to any of the association events, those look like area meetings. There is an association annual meeting that happens in January of every year. I definitely recommend that you sort of expose yourself to this organization because they do a lot for the partnership. And there is just so many great things that they are working on that district staff can be a part of and help support, and resources that you would want to take advantage of. Additionally, I do want to state, and I'm going to probably skip around a bit because I wish I had a picture. The association, though, is also tied to the commission. And I want to state this because I do think that this tie is really important. This is a general statute legislative tie 143. So what does that mean? How is a nonprofit organization actually tied to a governing body? So I'm actually going to go back a couple of slides and talk here. So our Soil and Water Conservation Commission has 7 members. And as you can see, not all 7 are here, but I will explain. So, for example, how is the association tied? Well, the association has a past president, a president, and a president-elect, so an incoming president, that serve on their boards each year. This is a 1-year term, and it rotates. So once you serve as the president-elect, the upcoming president, then you serve as the president, and then you serve as the past president. So once you kind of come into one of those 3 roles, even though each role is 1 year, you're kind of, in it for 3 total. So that general statute ties in because the association is looked to as the body that helps support the makeup of the commission. So those 3 leadership roles in the association also mirror 3 seats that exist on the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. So for example, Barbara Blywise, she is currently the association president, and that is how she is serving on the commission, even though she is also the chairwoman. Gail Hughes, right here, she is the president-elect, so she is serving in this position on the commission. And then Billy Kilpatrick, he is the past president, so he is in his last term of serving in the association as well as on the commission. Furthermore, we have 2 of these gentlemen right here, Brian Parker and Patrick Baker. These 2 gentlemen serve as regional representatives. So on the commission, there were also 3 supervisors that are regional representatives, 1 in the east, 1 in the central, and 1 in the west. So those are guided, and those folks can volunteer for those positions, and those are done at area meetings. Now, since the area meetings are run through the association, and then they eventually go to a vote at our annual meeting, the idea is that even though the tie there between the association and the commission is that the association runs sort of the election process, if you will, to elect those representatives to the commission. So they do have to be supervisors, and they do have to go through the election process through the association in order to serve in that capacity. So I can already hear you like saying, no one's saying it in the chat, but I know you're like, Brandy, 3 plus 3 is 6. You said there's 7. Got it. So one of the individuals is a governor appointed individual. This does not have to be a soil and water supervisor. It can be anyone. And so currently the seat for the governor appointed person, even though technically all of these individuals are sort of approved by the governor, that tie sort of outlines how that's done, but the governor still has to approve it. But there's one seat that is governor appointed very specifically, and that is the person in that seat currently is Dr. Portia Spence, and she is a professor at North Carolina A&T. So she currently serves in that role. Also, the governor, it should be noted that the governor does also appoint the chairwoman or chairman of the board. And so, like we said before, that is Barbara Blywise right here. Okay, so that might have been a little bit much. I do plan on doing a training more about the Soil and Water Conservation Commission just because I find it really interesting. But for the sake of time, I am going to move on. All right. And that is the tie between those two organizations is General Statute 143. All right. Also, there's a couple other notable organizations that I do want to quickly mention. Our Natural Resources Conservation Service is our federal partner. So a lot of times you will either see them come in and out of your district office. Some of them might actually work at a seat within your district. So they have federal funds basically to be implemented at the local level. So if you're ever looking for some additional funds to run a program, you can always check with them. Additionally, they may have the ability to serve the individuals in your communities in ways that our cost share programs may not be able to. So there might be additional sources that they're interested in through the federal programs. So you would want to talk with your NRCS representative in order to take advantage of those abilities. Additionally, district staff should be aware that there is a nonprofit organization that does directly serve you. It's called the North Carolina Conservation District Employees Association. It is also a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They help with various training events, but one of the coolest things about this program that they have is they have a professional development program where you can sort of track your professional development after you've been within your district for, I think it's 2 years, possibly. And then once you like hit certain thresholds of that program, then you get like awards and some credentials and things like that. So they do have some pretty great things for district staff to be involved in. If you're looking for more of a leadership role or ever have any ideas about how we can better serve the district staff specifically, this is an organization that directly aims to support you at the district level. And then last but certainly not least is the North Carolina Foundation of Soil and Water Conservation. This is also a 501c3 nonprofit organization that aims to support districts in a variety of different ways. They go after a plethora of different grants that help support the districts directly. So for example, in this picture, you can see this beautiful tent right here that says, what is soil? And then there's these little panels that you stick to it. This was an initiative where the foundation sought out some money to be able to buy these tents for the different areas to utilize at their outreach events. It was so popular that they sought more money out in order to provide these tents for the district specifically. So some districts, not all of them, but some of them do have these tents that they can use at their district level for any needs that they have. But if you don't have one at your district and you want to borrow one, it should be one available for use at the area level. But they do all kinds of things. They've gotten drones for districts. They've helped with different research type projects that impact different regional levels or districts. So when in doubt, if you see an email from any of these organizations, definitely make sure that you read over that email. You never know what goodies or Easter eggs could be in that email. So just always make sure that you check those, especially for the foundation. They do a lot to support our soil and water district. So just wanted to give them a shout out. And as you can see, that is the main groups that comprise our soil and water districts. I do not have a slide on the National Association of Conservation Districts, but basically they are sort of the national version of our association. So instead of just helping the state of North Carolina, this group aims to support all districts in all states. So they're sort of a higher level of support. They offer grants and scholarships for various things. They have meetings that are really great. So you can look into them as well. We do have other great partners, and this is a not exclusive list. There are more partners than even is on this list. So many partnerships, but these are kind of some of the main soil and water specific ones that aim to support you. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay. I'm actually going to sort of cut this presentation in half and stop here because we're going to go straight into the Division of Soil and Water Conservation, which will also lead into our discussion on cost share programs. So why don't we go ahead and take a 5-minute break? So I will see you guys at 10:05. And then we will continue this presentation to talk a little bit more about the division and the services that we provide at the state level. We're going to talk a little bit about the Division of Soil and Water Conservation here in North Carolina. So that is your state level partner. We do have I break this down into 5 different sections that we are just going to briefly go over this morning. So the first, you actually will get to interact with if you stay on from 10:30 to 12, and that's our engineering services section. These individuals help with our various technical assistance requests. They also are the main group that utilizes our teamwork project management software program. They help with surveying and engineering designs. And if you ever need a project that's signed off by an engineer, then they obviously have that capability. Our next team is our environmental services sections. This group manages our CREP program, our Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. They also have soil scientists that are available to you for any project needs that you have. We also work on the Job Approval Authority. That is sort of a credential that district staff can obtain in order to sign off on certain projects or best management practices. We also have a team of nutrient management specialists, and those are individuals that help with some of our swine and dairy type projects. This could be like lagoon closures and things of that nature, and they're part of our environmental services team. And then the training programs, which is the work that I do, also falls under the environmental services section. Next, we have our district operations, and they are primarily comprised of our regional coordinators. These are your liaison to the division and the partnership. So when in doubt, I would highly recommend that these kind of be your go-to people. If you're not sure where to go for something, then I'm sure they can help point you in the right direction. So I definitely recommend getting to know your regional coordinator. Next, we do have the administration section, and although they also do administrative work at the state level, they also help our districts with their supervisor forms and contracts because the supervisors do have to provide certain information each year, as well as they get paid money for attending their meetings and things of that nature. So they do help support any sort of contractual obligations between the districts, the supervisors, and the state, um, and the state in general. Also, our administrative group also serves as a secretary to the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. Group, and we're actually not going to spend a ton of time on these, but we have a bunch of, and I really should rename this. I like to call them the cost share programs, but they're technically the non-point source services team. But for our purposes, there is a lot of cost share programs that are included in this team. So we have our agriculture cost share program, our impaired and impacted streams initiative, which is actually kind of a component within our agriculture cost share program. We have our agriculture water resources assistance program, our stream restoration assistance program. We're actually not going to really get to talk about that one much today, and that one is not technically a cost share program, but hopefully we will have sort of a bonus training for new employees on that one here soon. And then we also have a community conservation assistance program. That one is called our CCAP program. All right. And so these groups are the groups that sort of comprise your partnership. Now let's discuss the cost share programs because we get lots of questions on these. So in general, the program benefits of the cost share programs equal benefits to the public. So this ensures that water quality improvements to local bodies of water within North Carolina. It improves soil health initiatives, reduces erosions, creates local jobs, and improves the sustainability and resiliency of agribusiness. There is sort of a general process for our cost share programs. And this looks like the Soil and Water Conservation Commission solicits requests for program funding. So you sort of recommend what sort of funds you need. That's done through what we call a strategic plan. So you sort of request funds. And then the Soil and Water Conservation Districts will receive program funding based on sort of the information you provided in your strategic plan and whatever money that we can actually allocate out to the districts in a way that is fair across the board. And there are certain parameters. We won't dig into that, but if you ever have any questions about the additional parameters on how we allocate funds, your cost share specialist can help you with that. And then the programs are implemented locally by you, the Soil and Water District, and you're provided, your cooperators are then provided those funds for the cost share. So we're going to break down these programs just briefly. We have our agriculture cost share program, which is sort of our longest running program, and currently it's managed under John Beck. The Agriculture Cost Share Program is a voluntary cost share based program offering financial and technical assistance for the installation of best management practices to reduce the delivery of agricultural non-point source pollution into the watercourses of the state. So who can actually benefit from the Agriculture Cost Share Program? Any agriculture landowners or renters. This was authorized by the General Assembly in 1983 to improve the water quality associated with agriculture. And renters or landowners can seek out agriculture cost share funding after 3 years of being in operation. So that is a parameter that they do have to meet. The operation does have to exist for 3 years or more. There are a bunch of best management practices. Now, a best management practice is sort of a term that we used for a conservation practice that we put on the ground or recommend implementing. So as you can see here, that might be, say, the practice of installing this watering tank right here and sort of the gravel around it. So we do have a bunch of different practices. And they all fall under 5 categories for this program: sediment and nutrient management, erosion and nutrient management, agrochemical pollution prevention, animal waste management, and stream protection management. Here's a couple of highlights about the program. There are 66 approved best management practices within this program. This program is a 75% cost share. So that means that 75% of the funding, in theory, goes to the landowner. Now, while, things always change, things are always becoming more expensive. Sometimes that 75% does get a little bit skewed, but the intention is to try to get as close to 75% as possible. So then the landowner is responsible for paying 25% of the installation of that best management practice. Now, while it doesn't say most, for the agriculture cost share programs, most of our maintenance periods for these best management practices are 10 years. That is not true for all of them, but it is true for most of them. And then this program has 4 million reoccurring state appropriations per year. Allocations for this program are made to all districts that request funds. These allocations are made to the districts in July, and then they are based on those parameters that we mentioned before. There's more information in the guidelines and procedures for this allocation document right here. And then there is an opportunity to request additional allocations in February or March if sufficient funding is available. This might be for folks who are expecting funds not to come through. A project maybe fell through and they sort of want to give the money back. A project is canceled, or any sort of funds that might have been held sort of in assurance to make sure that we sort of met all the criteria, and then we can sort of allocate that back out later in the year. So there will be an opportunity to request more funds through closer to the end of the fiscal year. Next is our Agriculture Water Resources Assistance Program. This program is led currently by Lorian Deaton. She is wonderful. She's our AgRap coordinator. This is a voluntary cost share based program offering financial and technical assistance for the installation of best management practices to reduce the delivery of agriculture non-point source pollution into the water courses of the state. Sounds very familiar to the last one, doesn't it? The purpose for this program is to increase the water use and availability and storage of water, and then to conserve and protect water resources. So this program is based more in water quantity than water quality, as the last program was. So who can benefit from this program? The same as the last one, agricultural landowners or renters. And then for this one, you do have to be in operation for at least 1 year. There are additional program restrictions for this program. Income for the landowner or renter, whoever is signing the contract, must be $250,000 or less, or the income must be 75% or more from farming operations. So a couple of additional stipulations for our AgRap projects. There is a reduced number of best management practices for this program. So all of the eligible practices are mentioned right here. This program is a 75% or 90% cost share. Most of the maintenance periods for the best management practices are also 10 years, similar to the other program. This cost share program receives $977,500 in recurring state appropriations each year. Allocations are made out to districts, as well as we also do regional applications, and I will talk about that in just a moment. And then allocations are made out to all districts requesting funds. So if you request funds for this program, you will receive some amount of money to implement in your community. So, as you can see here, 10% of the funds for this program are withheld in order to implement regional applications. So these might just be larger projects that you can apply for funding for. Um, all districts may voluntarily return ag-RAP allocations at any time. So for any reason, at any time, sort of no questions asked, if you will, if you don't think you're going to use your funds and want to return them, you absolutely can do that. And I don't believe that there's any penalty at all for returning those allocations. In early February, additional funding requests can be submitted for specific projects through an online process. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, there is sort of a way to go and request more funds if you should need them later in the fiscal year. There is also only a certain number of regional application best management practices that are allowed, and you can see those 4 practices right here. I do want to note that regional applications are competitive. The highest ranked projects are the ones that get funded, and that regional applications are typically due in November every calendar year. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the Community Conservation Assistance Program. The CCAP coordinator is currently a vacant position, but we are hoping to fill that very soon. For many years since the creation of this program, a gentleman named Tom Hill has served in this position, and he recently retired this year. So the purpose of this program is to reduce the delivery of non-point source pollution into waters of the state by installing best management practices on developed lands, not directly involved in agriculture production. Through this voluntary incentive-based conservation program, landowners are provided educational, technical, and financial assistance. So who can get the community assistance program funds? Technically anyone can get it. So you do not have to be in sort of agriculture land use in order to receive funds from the CCAP program. This program prioritizes water quality project on non-agriculture lands. So similar in a sense to our agriculture cost share program in the sense that it has to have a water quality benefit, but it doesn't have to be on agriculture lands. And it can be on agricultural lands. Sorry, I misspoke. And then also, the property does have to be developed or retrofitted for 3 years. So there is still kind of that 3 year has to be developed. This program is a 75% or 90% cost share program. Most of the practices in this program also require a 10-year maintenance. Again, same rule applies. It's not all of them, but it is the majority of them. This program is only regional applications, so no funding is provided to the districts to implement locally, technically. And this program receives $136,000 recurring state appropriations. So similar to the ag-RAP regional application process, these are very competitive because they are only made through the regional application process. Projects are awarded funding by ranking score, and then there are equal amounts of funding available per region. There is an online application form that you can find on our website, and the Soil and Water Conservation Commission approves which projects will be approved for allocations to receive funding in January. So just a brief recap of these ag cost share programs. The main highlights that we really want you to take away with is for the agriculture cost share program, this one addresses water quality on agriculture lands. For the CCAP program, it addresses water quality on non-agriculture lands. And then the ag-RAP program addresses water quantity needs on agriculture lands. So these are sort of the main points that you want to keep in mind when you're speaking to people in your community to see what the needs are and what funding might be available for them. Okay. I have just a couple of minutes. This is just sort of a highlight of some information that we have already gone through in this PowerPoint. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through a couple of other of these informational items. Each of the best management practices do have various policies that are associated with them. And these are provided on our website. So I always recommend that whenever you do a best management practice or you're looking to install it, that you just go ahead and look at the website because something might have changed, print it out and put it in the folder. It's sort of just a great thing to have on hand that that was the current policies and procedures at the time that you were installing that practice. That way you can make sure that you're up to date on the maintenance requirements, the specifications when installed, and things of that nature. Our BMP policies online have definitions, the purposes for the BMPs, installation specifications, design requirements, documentation guidance, and maintenance requirements. So it can all be found online. It's all there for you. And if you ever have any issues with hunting that down, please talk to your regional coordinator or your cost share specialist. We can definitely get you the information that you need. Here's a list of our cost share staff here at the state level. And then I just briefly want to talk to you about what is going to happen after this. So here in just a moment, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to have our training segments with our engineering team on our teamwork project management platform, as well as our engineering panel. It is not required for you to stay for those training segments if, say, you're an administrator or an educator and you're not available or not that curious about those. However, it is really good information to have. So I recommend that regardless of your duties, if you can stay, we do recommend that you stay. If for some reason you have something that you need to do, we will record these items and put them on a new employee hub. So what happens after this is after today is done, I'm going to send you an orientation packet. It is going to include this information that is specific to you that's going to be filled out. It'll have the contact sheet, a sheet that recommends training that you could seek out in your first year, an acronym list, and those what we call the partnership pipes diagram that we went over earlier. Additionally, I will include some information about the new employee training hub. We have all the videos up to date where you can go and find resources from past new employee trainings. So when in doubt, I would definitely check those out. Those are a resource to you and sort of kind of keep the continuity of this program going. And then next steps. So after you receive your orientation packet, I would like for you to try to go ahead and reach out to all the folks on that list. You don't have to do it all at once, but I do want you to start making those connections because I do think that they're really valuable and important. You can just say, "Hi, my name is, so and so. I work at this district. I'm a new employee and I just wanted to say hello." If you have a question, feel free to go ahead and ask it. If not, at least you're making progress into making that connection. And then after you finish this orientation, we will also be contacting you about phase 3. Phase 3 is a hands-on training that will be provided either by a regional coordinator or a cost share specialist. So you don't need to do anything with that. We will contact you on when that's going to be. And then last but certainly not least, on that new employee orientation packet contact sheet, there will be 2 mentors. You do not need to know exactly which one or who you want to go with yet, but stage 4 is a mentorship sort of pairing, if you will. So I recommend 2 mentors for you to reach out to. You just need to choose one. You don't have to choose both, but you're certainly welcome to do it with 2 different people if you would like. So you can start making those connections. That stage won't happen until after you've completed the in-person training, but it is kind of something for you to be aware of so you can kind of rumble with that and mull it over before the time comes where I'm like, hey, you're now into stage 4, your mentorship, and so here's what we're going to do. So if you guys have any questions about that process, please feel free to let me know. I do apologize. I am running a little bit behind, but I am still going to give you 5 minutes. So we're going to come back around 10:33 and with our engineering team. So feel free to take a break, go grab some water, go grab a cup of coffee. If you have any questions, you can come off mute and ask or put them in the chat. And we are going to go ahead and get set up for our training segments. So thank you guys for joining. We will see you guys in a few minutes around 10:33.